Hello, welcome to Land of Kakiak. My name is Laurel. Today's video is on advanced language lessons. Okay, if you missed my last video, when I went over did my first flip through of the intermediate language lessons. I will link that in the description box for you. Okay, so this series, there is a primary language lessons by Emma Searle, followed by an intermediate language lessons by Emma Searle. And those are, classic language arts books that have been reprinted. Catherine Andrews and Mary Jane Newcomer, they wrote teacher guides to go with those two. So that would take you from first grade all the way through sixth grade between those two books. So Mary Jane Newcomer, who was one of the authors of the teacher guides, she did a reprint of Aldine third language book, and she called it Advanced Language Lessons, so that it makes sense. It continues on in that with the Emma Searle books, but it is originally Aldine third language book, which was originally published 1917. Because Emma Searle never wrote an advanced book to follow her intermediate language lessons. This is Lost Classic Books Company, or the one who did those reprints of Emma Searle's books. They asked Mary Jane for a recommendation for an advanced language lessons, just because there's a demand for it. And Mary Jane liked Aldine's third language lessons. So she is, just a little bit about Mary Jane, she is a qualified teacher with experience in homeschooling and is thoroughly knowledgeable of the content of Searle's books. She chose this book as an appropriate follow-up for advanced students, being from about the same period and with content well suited to advance the lessons in the previous language lessons books. The text has been updated and edited only where necessary. I like that. I like the updating of classic books. Just because sometimes our grammar and spelling does get kind of tweaked a little bit. Sometimes I notice that with the McGuffies. This book is intended for students aged 13 to 16 and will be especially helpful for those who have completed Emma Searle's intermediate language lessons. So this is going to start 8th grade, right? So 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, something like that. So yeah, it sounds like this is about grade 8, 9, 10, 11. So the copyright, this is 2017. This is edited and revised in 2013. So yeah, a little chunk of time had gone by since she did the teacher guides for the intermediate language lessons. So notes on this new edition. And P.S. I linked to where you can find the original Aldine's language in the description box, but I couldn't find a clean copy. They're all PDF. The PDFs that you can get, they're images, and so the backgrounds are all yellow. And I'm I wouldn't want to print something that had, that wasn't a white background. So I don't know. These are affordable. I would just suggest, if you wanted to get them, to buy this and not try to print it if you can. But it's good to get in there to kind of look at the content. So it says the Aldine language series is designed to encourage and facilitate an effective writing style through observation, imagination, and thought. Effective expression includes the essentials of grammar, strong, clear sentence structure, attention to word choice, and a solid understanding of the basic rules of punctuation and capital letters. This language book presents the student with those skills so necessary to success. A careful observer will, however, notice a difference in punctuation, capitalization, and spelling as presented in this language book and how they are used today. Since this book's original copyright in 1917, language expressions have changed, along with basic rules of punctuation and capitalization. We've decided it would be in the best interest of the student to learn the basics of grammar as they are used today. Therefore, several changes have been made to this edition to reflect current trends. For example, Chapter 5, Letter Writing, has been revised to reflect the current method of formatting a business letter and envelope. In addition, changes may occur in commas used in place of semicolons when appropriate, lowercase treatment of words formerly written in capital letters as in references to the deity when not directly naming the deity, and apostrophes used in plurals of dates and symbols. Several accepted styles today may differ from this language book. What is most important is consistency in style. Lost Classics Book Company has used the Chicago Manual of Style as a primary reference for these changes. Language is always changing, and when students notice these changes, they are well on their way to achieving the fluency of language that this language book encourages. I just want to check. There's an index in the back. I always appreciate an index. Okay, looks like there's 14 chapters. So chapter 1 is stories. What does stories look like? 3 tests of a good story. The book critic. There, Jack. There's the book for you. These words drew my attention from the magazine article I was reading in the public library. I looked up in time to see the speaker, a bright-faced lad of 12, hand a book to one of a group of 3 boys who were eagerly watching him. The speaker turned to the shelves, took down another volume, ruffled the pages through his fingers, and returned the book to its place. Book after book he treated in the same way until at last he held one a little longer, then handed it to a second boy with the remark, "There's one for you, Tom." After examining several more books in the same way, he found one for his third companion. Without a question, 3 boys carried the books to the desk, had the proper records made, and left the room with an air of complete satisfaction. The boy book critic selected a magazine for himself, and, with an evident feeling of duty well done, seated himself near me. I saw the card, "Quiet in this room." But I simply had to find out how that boy judged books so quickly. Turning to him, I asked, "Do you often help the other boys select their books?" "I often select them for them," was the reply. "But how do you decide?" I asked. "You did not seem to select the works of any particular author." "No, I didn't," he said. "The fellows don't want a good author, they want a good book. And I'll tell you how I judge a good book. I read a little at the beginning. If it sounds interesting, if it makes me want to know what's going to happen, I turn to the middle. There I read a little to see whether something is happening, whether the story is exciting, whether the people in it are saying or doing something interesting. Then I look to see whether it ends all right. If the beginning, middle, and end strike me all right, I think the fellows will like it. See?" The boys' tests of a story were suggestive. While a good story must meet many other tests, no story can be very interesting that does not meet these 3. Let us keep them in mind and apply them in judging the work of others and our own attempts at composition. That's cute. I feel like that's helpful. Better than saying, to write a good story, you need to have these 3 things. They put it into a little narration, which sticks in your head better. Everyone who's familiar with living books gets that concept. Then it goes into the beginning of introduction of a story. Here are the beginnings of some stories or compositions by well-known authors. Just quoting some stuff. Making stories from introductions. Okay, so because there's not a teacher guide that goes with this, Mary Jane has just put, I think the assignment looks like into it. It says, so there's some reading, there are some follow-up questions here, which you could have, your student could write answers to that day, or maybe you just are having a discussion. Kind of depends. Because I'm wanting to move my kids more in the RC method of school, I always want to maximize what they can do independently. But at the same time, I have to ask myself, is it beneficial to them? So I can make sure they're actually understanding it, to have a little discussion with me, It's just something to think about. Okay. Then they say, choose one of the foregoing introductions and write a story from it. So they get to pick one of those as their own, right? And then just add on. Try to satisfy the curiosity roused by the introduction. Make the story amusing, mysterious, or pathetic as suggested by the introduction. That's funny. Look, this is almost like homework. Look through your readers or any book or stories you have and select a good introduction to a story. Be prepared to read this introduction at the next language lesson period and to tell why you think it's good. Movement and story. Okay, here's another activity. Read the whole poem and note how full of action it is. There's something happening in nearly every line. Are the sentences as a rule long or short? Can you find a line or a sentence that does not add something new and interesting to the story? Mention the things in the first stanza that awaken the reader's interest. Okay, so going through those tests, making prose versions of poems full of action, judging stories, the end of a story. I like how there's very distinct little lessons, good story endings, writing a story in parts, telling a story. They told them to tell a story, I think just orally. But they're if you don't have any ideas, here's a bunch of ideas. that they could use if they wanted to. Okay, on to chapter 2. Subject, predicate, substantive, verb. Have you ever practiced correct forms like those in the first column? Like we girls went, not us girls went. It is I instead of it is me. Do you know why the first column is right and the second wrong? The time has come to learn why, but it cannot all be told in one lesson. It will take many lessons. Like music or swimming, and the first lessons may not seem very useful, but when you have finished, you will see that every lesson was needed. I like how they're kind of prepping. They're prepping the student, right, with that. In order to know why the sentences in the first column are right and the others wrong, it is necessary to understand the relations which words have to one another when they are put together in sentences. This study is called grammar. Okay, they're going to go over subject and predicates, sentences and non-sentences, marking the beginning and the end of sentences, okay, types of sentences. And probably a lot of this will be review, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting some review in there. Position of the subject substantive, which they just say no matter how long the entire subject of a sentence may be, there's always some word in it, and that is the principal or necessary word. Studying sentences for subjects, substantive, and verb. Compound subjects, compound predicate. Use of compound subjects and predicates. Okay, topics, paragraphs, outlines. So I guess if you didn't think your kid needed any like review with that stuff, you could probably just start on chapter 3, right? To get more into compositions. So a narrow subject or part of a subject is called a topic. Mention at least 3 interesting topics suggested by each of the following subjects: stories, books, nights, Lochinvar, flowers, money, a dance, a ball game, how to make a cake, how to make a box. What a paragraph is. Studying paragraphs for topics. It says, read carefully the following description of early school buildings and see how Miss Crawford has grouped together the sentences relating to each topic and shown the change from one topic to another by indentation. So they call it indentation. I would have called it indentation. Am I saying it wrong? Is it indentation, not indentation? or they mean the same thing. Okay, so they read that descriptive piece. They're going to go over outlines, description from an outline, noting changes in topic, the topic sentence. I like that there's, mentor text, newspaper topic sentences and paragraphs, making topic sentences, how paragraphs grow. So the enlargement or development of the topic sentence by the addition of other sentences makes the paragraph. Each added sentence must help to develop the topic or make it clear. There must be as many sentences as are necessary for the purpose and no more. So a topic sentence may be enlarged or developed into a paragraph the following ways. 1, by giving details. 2, by giving illustrations or instances. 3, by giving reasons. And 4, by giving comparisons or contrasts. Analyzing paragraphs for ways of growth. Let us see how the following paragraphs grew. In the first, an Indian, King Philip, is supposed to be speaking. Okay, so here's what they read. In the above paragraph, the topic is announced in the first sentence. Stranger, the land is mine. It is a topic sentence. Through the sentences that follow, King Philip explains and defends his ownership of the land by giving reasons. So those are just 3 reasons, 4 reasons, 5 reasons. Note how the Indian's idea of ownership of the land asserted in the topic sentence is developed by clear and strong by the reason mentioned in each added sentence. Then they give an example of a written outline of that paragraph. And then they're going to talk about writing an outline of a paragraph, planning paragraphs, paragraph talks. Make an outline for a talk to your classmates on one of the following topics. Think carefully about the subject and its different parts. Then follow Benjamin Franklin's way of planning a talk. So the beginning, the middle, and the ending of a paragraph, making paragraphs from topic sentences, writing a paragraph from a topic sentence, connected paragraphs, the conversation paragraph, writing conversation paragraphs, inventing conversations, Writing a letter in paragraphs. Comparing the paragraph and the stanza. That's for poems. Chapter 4. Nouns and pronouns, nominative case, number and person, agreement of verbs, gender, agreement of pronouns. So nouns, common and proper. So what I want, when we go over stuff like this, is I want it to be embedded in like composition. So I'm hoping that's what I'm going to find. I mean, you have to introduce it. Okay, so they introduced those concepts. Now it says studying sentences for nouns. So now we're going to look at a mentor text and study it for those. Pronouns. Again, we're studying it. Personal pronouns. Talking about the first person here. There's some little exercises. We're talking about second person, third person, case. The form of a noun or pronoun that shows its relation to other words is called case. The form of a word used as the subject of a sentence is called the nominative case. So I and he are the nominative case of the pronouns denoting a person speaking and a man spoken of. The forms me and him are in English usually called the objective case. So I versus me, we versus us, he versus him, she versus her, they, them, who, whom, okay? So it's the reason behind why no girls were late this morning and no girls was late this morning. And right to say he and I saw it and wrong to say him and me saw it. Okay, so it's going to explain like why we have those rules. Pronouns and subjects, pronouns and compound subjects. So it seems like, at this age, they should be able to read these and do these exercises by themselves, just like write them. I would just have my kid write the whole sentence into their notebook. But what there isn't is, there's no key, so they can't check it themselves, which would be nice if there was, because it would be nice if you were doing it together, if you both had your own to look at. I guess you'd have to buy 2 of these if you wanted to read along together. It does kind of seem like there's less writing than I would want there to be with it. Seems like there's more like these little exercises more. Maybe it's just mostly here in the beginning. Maybe it'll get into more composition later. They're still going over agreement of verb with compound subject, gender, agreement of pronoun and gender. So I think to use this, how I would use it is to do the lesson, because the lesson part would be pretty short, like kind of the exercise part. I'm required to teach composition as a subject. I might use this as kind of like the warm-up at the beginning of class or to have them like do their exercise. I'm not really teaching a class then, but have them like do a lesson in here and then work on writing something like an essay or something having to do with one of their other subjects, probably like history or science or something. They'd compose based on those subjects. And then this is mostly grammar right here. Let's see if maybe they've had a big grammar section and maybe they're going to start switching over to, seems like it keeps on a lot of grammar. The form of business letters, form of friendly letters, formal notes, modifiers, adjectives, adverbs, studying sentences for modifiers, using modifiers, position of modifiers, adjectives, articles, singular and plural adjectives, form of adverbs. It says good writers and speakers form adverbs of manner by adding ly to describe adjectives. But there are exceptions to this rule. Yeah, if the adjective already ends in ly, such as lively and friendly, there is no corresponding adverb. Use instead a group of words such as in a lively manner, in a friendly way, forming the comparative and the superlative, using them. This is helpful. Adjectives often misused. Mad, angry. Mad means insane. In the sense of angry, it is not used by good speakers and writers. Dumb and stupid. Dumb probably means mute or silent. Funny and odd. Funny means comical. Odd means strange. Okay, some Adjectives and adverbs often confounded. Good and well, most and almost, near, nearly, some, somewhat, real, really, and very. Double negatives. Okay, choice of words. Synonyms. Appropriate words, words of special association, words denoting different degree. These things will help the writing be higher quality. Finding antonyms. So for me, it's just not an all-in-one. Like I couldn't just use this for our, like this wouldn't be a standalone for like a writing course. But I would pair this with some kind, like I would pair this along and then have them also do essays. But I don't think this one isn't going to tell you how to write an essay. Shall or will. It's just going to teach you how to write correctly. Describing a bird. Oh yeah. Which of the two following descriptions is literary? Which practical? Describing a flower. The mind's viewpoint. Description of a story. Subjects for description. Description by comparisons. So comparisons should deal with ideas familiar to the person addressed. Phrases, prepositions, conjunctions, interjections, and clauses. Sentence types. In speaking or writing, we should fit sentences to our thoughts so as to express it truly and accurately. Pleasing sentences. Sentences to be rewritten. Narration. So telling what has happened is narration. The purpose of narration is to give an interesting account of an event or a series of events. So they've got biography, autobiography, history, anecdote, fiction. Story is a general term for narrative. Now here it's going into different types of writing. So this would be an easy one, like chapter 12, to have them study, what is a narration, and then try to write these different types. Like the story of a personal narrative, a narrative from history. You could assign that. The escape of the Douglas. The use of direct quotations in narration. So you could, assign that assignment that they have to use those. Direct quotations. Making a story move. The race with silver skates. Studying narratives for movement. Suspense. That's fun. A narrative poem. A narrative with sentiment. Keeping a journal. This is one of the best ways of improving your writing is to keep a journal. You must make it worthwhile or you will soon tire of it and give it up, as so many others have done. To make your journal worthwhile, you should record in it its incidents of importance and of present interest to yourself. I think they mean like a personal journal or diary. Incidents that you think will interest yourself or others in the future. I do love hearing entries from people sometimes will find an old journal and they're talking about things that were happening in history. Like you'll find one from the Civil War or something. People talking about stuff that was actually happening from a personal point of view. That is I think really interesting to read. This one's assigning a story that you're supposed to select one of the following groups of suggestive sentences and use it as the beginning of a story. Make your story as clear, forcible, and interesting as you can, right? Which are concepts they've gone over. Writing myths. Writing myths from quotations. Okay, so looks like the last chapter is when they really get into having them write. Or chapter 12. How to make sentences forceful. Now they're drilling down on the sentences being higher quality. Chapter 14, exposition and argument. So exposition or explanatory. Exposition is composition that aims to explain or make clear. Studying an exposition, oral exposition, written exposition, oral exposition from given introductions, meaning of argumentation, or argument suggested by a story, oral arguments, written arguments, making original addresses. Chapter 15, summary of rules for punctuation and capitals. Okay. I might, if I was going to use this, I might mark that because I feel like you would be possibly referring to that all the time, like even earlier in the book. How to use commas, semicolons, colons, dashes, parentheses, quotation marks, apostrophe, hyphen, capital letters. That was the whole thing. Okay, so it sounds like they don't really get to composition until chapter 12 out of 14. So 12, 13, and 14 are more your composition chapters, but it's more like it's just education. It's just educating you on stuff and giving exercises on it for most of it, on grammar concepts, and then it gets into so getting the mechanics and their writing correct, and then the last 3 chapters are about helping you get their writing to be good, So it's correct writing, and then when you go up to good writing. But good writing has to be correct first, because even if what you write is compelling, if you use your capitals wrong and the formatting sucks and you don't group your sentences in the right way to form paragraphs that make sense, it's going to be awful, right? Anyway, so I like it. It's definitely not like a all-in-one writing resource. So yeah, but you'd have to figure out, I'm sorry, I'm thinking it through in real time as I record this. This would be something I would pair more with just general essay writing for their other subjects. So if they were taking, I don't know, so this is into high school, they could be taking all types of stuff. Like they could be doing literature, history, might want to have them do some writing for science. They might be taking economics. What else do kids take in high school? They might be taking Western Civ or something like that. They could just apply proper writing and then later on the good writing tips to those essays. Anyways, well, I hope this was helpful to you if you were wondering what the heck was in here and what it's all about. I will link this one for you in the description box, as well as the video to my intermediate language lessons flip through. Okay, well, I hope that was helpful and answered any questions you had about advanced language lessons, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.